Welcome back to another lesson with me, Mr. B. Over the next few lessons, we're going to overview the parts of an argument essay. The purpose of this style of writing is to change the reader's point of view, to bring about some action on the reader's part, or to ask the reader to accept the writer's explanation or evaluation of a concept, issue, or problem. So in these lessons, we're going to go over this essay outline, starting off with the introduction, where you're going to introduce your topic and state the purpose of your paper. And then number 2, move on to types of appeals, ways that you can persuade or convince your reader. The heart of your essay, if you will, which is your body paragraphs, which is when you'll provide evidence to support the purpose you stated in your introduction. And then lastly, number 4, your conclusion. You're going to wrap everything up, draw a conclusion to summarize all of your points. So starting off with the introductory paragraph. So first, we'll look at the 3 important questions you want to address in your introduction. Then go in depth with those requirements that I just listed and learn about what makes an effective thesis statement at the heart of your essay. So there are 3 important questions your introduction should be answering, starting with what is this? What do you want me, the reader, to do? And why am I reading this? Your introduction should provide context of the book. This could be setting, time, place, characters, and you want your reader to understand what this essay is about. So state and explain the themes, main ideas, and key conflicts that relate to your argument. And then lastly, there's the big why. What is the main idea or argument of this paper? This is where you state your thesis. This lays out the direction that your paper is going to take. Now let's look at the requirements we'll use to answer each of those questions. Some of the requirements you'll need in your introduction paragraph are the author and title, background information, themes and key conflicts, and lastly, your thesis statement. Now let's take an in-depth look at how all of these elements link back to those 3 important questions that an introduction answers. So make sure you capitalize the author's name and italicize the book title. This is key. This is MLA formatting, not my rule. It's just a standard rule for English essay writing in general. Next, did you provide sufficient information as if your audience has never read the book? Did you include things like time and location of the story? And important characters, especially the ones present in your evidence. You want to make sure that you're providing enough context in this introduction so your readers know where the essay is headed. Then for themes and key conflicts. What themes, main ideas, and or key conflicts need to be addressed before presenting your thesis? Then there's the thesis statement itself. This is the last sentence of your introduction stating the 3 topics that your body paragraphs will be analyzing. So now let's go even more in depth. How to meet each requirement of the introduction checklist that we just looked at. Setting the context. Context allows us to set the tone or mood of the paper. And you can do that with a hook, which is a statement, question, or fact, even a quote that catches your reader's attention. And again, it may help set the tone of your paper. Then you can include a brief summary with key information like setting, time, place, location, and other important characters. And make sure you mention the author and title at least once. And again, that the name is properly capitalized and the title is italicized. After you brief them on the book you're writing about, tell them why they should care and keep reading. Are there any themes or main ideas, key conflicts, terms, critical concepts that need to be explained, that need to be defined? Make sure you give enough detail to teach someone, but not so much that it distracts the reader from the point. Here's a tip. Look at the essay prompt that you chose. Are there any keywords or themes that attracted you to choose it, like the 4 eyes of oppression or systemic racism? Why are they important to you, to the story? A thesis statement is the last sentence of your introduction paragraph, which is your main idea and argument for the paper. In a standard 5-paragraph essay, your thesis statement would be the point you want to prove through 3 topics, which is also known as your body paragraph's topic sentences. Again, this is the last sentence of your introduction paragraph that maps out what issues you will analyze. And here's a tip. Again, think back to the prompt that you chose. What topics need to be addressed? Again, those keywords that I mentioned earlier. So if we think back to our 3 essay prompts from our literary analysis annotation organizer or our bookmarks, here are some examples of topics you could use for your thesis statement. These topics would guide the evidence you include in your body paragraphs later on. For perpetuating systemic racism, 3 topics you might want to address in your body paragraphs are systemic racism, racial profiling, and law enforcement. For the 4 eyes of oppression, you could choose institutional, interpersonal, and internalized. You could even choose sub-oppression or ideological oppression. And then number 3, for your voice matters, you might want to talk about Star's identity, her friends, and her family. And of course, these keywords are not limited to each of these 3 prompts. You can obviously talk about Star's identity, friends, and family in the other 2 prompts as well. So thesis statement needs to be contestable, supportable, clear, and consistent. It should be arguable, which is to contest something, meaning there's another opinion or perspective that an audience member can have. It needs to be supportable. The evidence should be able to support your side and the claims that you're making in this essay. It needs to be clear. Those 3 topics that we just reviewed for your body paragraph, it needs to be very explicit, very clear that you're addressing those 3 topics in your essay. And lastly, it needs to be consistent. Everything in this essay connects back to and supports to prove this sentence as true. So whatever you're claiming as your argument or your main idea, all of your evidence has to support that statement. So let's look at some example thesis statements from the essay prompts to see how they are contestable, supportable, clear, and consistent. So prompt number 1, Angie Thomas's "The Hate You Give" illustrates how systemic racism is perpetuated in Star's life by the police, her friends, and family. How is it contestable? This person is claiming that systemic racism is perpetuated by the police, her friends, and family. So that's something that someone can argue, right? Someone could disagree and say, no, they don't do that. For the support, this writer is definitely going to find some evidence of her friends, family, and the police, and them perpetuating systemic racism. The 3 topics are clear, right? We have the police, we have her family, we have her friends, and consistent and supportable kind of fall in line with one another. What about prompt number 2? In "The Hate You Give" by Angie Thomas, Star Carter's family, friends, and law enforcement perpetuate institutional, interpersonal, and internalized oppression. So this one's a little more multi-layered. Again, this writer is arguing that Star's family, friends, and the law enforcement perpetuate, specifically the 3 topics here, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized oppression. So again, it is falling in line with contestable, supportable, clear, and consistency. Now let's look at a prompt number 3 example. Star Carter struggles to find her voice in "The Hate You Give" when she deliberates speaking out on justice for Khalil, racism from her friends, and her overprotective family. So the contestable part of this essay prompt would be right here. Star Carter struggles to find her voice. And then the 3 topics are the speaking out on justice for Khalil, speaking against the racism from her friends, and speaking out towards her overprotective family. When it comes to argument or persuasive writing, there are 3 types of appeals. This is another layer to add in essay writing, and you'll often find it in higher levels of writing and public speaking. These types of appeal are known as logos, ethos, and pathos. The types of appeals coined by Greek philosophers, methods of persuasion used by speakers and writers to convince their audience. So logos, ethos, and pathos. Logos uses logic and reason to persuade. Ethos uses credibility or reliable sources to persuade. And pathos uses emotions or emotional responses to persuade. So how do you incorporate an appeal? Using logos, ethos, or pathos, this is actually a very subtle and passive process, and it may not be so obvious at first. You can use an appeal when writing a topic sentence or concluding sentence. You can choose your quotes based on an appeal. So your examples show a character making emotional appeals or using pathos to persuade. You can also explain it in your analysis or commentary, and this is the least subtle way. This shows logos because blank. So to wrap up this introduction paragraph lesson, there are various ways to write an introduction paragraph and different uses at the beginning of any written work. So here are a few ways that you could write your introduction. Begin with a general subject that can be narrowed down to a specific topic of your essay. This could be expanding or explaining your qualified or limited topics. Begin with specifics, a brief anecdote, a specific example, or fact that will broaden into a more general topic of your essay. You can give a definition of a concept that will be discussed, make a startling statement, which was known as a hook, start with an idea or statement that is widely held point of view, and then surprise the reader by stating that this idea is false or that you hold a different point of view, which is also a form of a hook. Start with a familiar quotation from a famous book or person related to your essay. Give a number of descriptive images that will lead to the thesis of your essay. Ask questions that you intend to answer. Could be any one of the prompts. Use classification to indicate how your topic fits into the larger class to which it belongs, or how your topic can be divided into categories that you are going to discuss. Introductions can be one of the trickiest and confusing parts to write. I often stumble into writer's block because there's a daunting task ahead, or I just don't know where to begin. Hopefully this overview helps guide you in getting started on your essay. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.